today because I recently discovered your channel called NextGen Tech CEO Journey, which sounded not only super relatable but also very
Mm,
interesting and timely to, I believe, many
mm,
of us. So, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do as a podcaster before we begin?
mm. Awesome, awesome. Well, Jane, I must say, firstly, it's a pleasure to be sharing this space with you. Yeah, as a creator here in the space. And my name is Deano Delpleash. Yeah, all of you can see and read it. I'm from a very small island called St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And before I tell you what I do, just to draw a bit of context, when I was 16 years old, I was the eldest amongst all of my friends, and we were nine friends who will hang out together. And I remember this one day I was on a rock standing, and it was summer, and my friends were just playing, around the riverside and just having a good time. However, something was unsettled inside of me. Yeah, because a part of me know that in the coming years, most of my friends, they'll either be out of school, they'll be dealing with drugs. Maybe some of them may get killed because of the relationships that they entertain. And I felt helpless because I didn't know what I could have done to change their path. And it was as if, you know, my intuition spoke to me. And the exact thought was, if you're gonna be an influence to them, you gotta become someone of influence. Yeah, I gotta change. I realized I had to leave the island to learn from people who are influential so I can know how to become. Yeah, and that's has been one of the main driving force for what I do today as a coach. Yeah, as a high performance coach, and I work with tech startup CEOs to scale their impact without, as I'll say, without selling their soul, or without sacrificing their work life balance, or wasting time on trial and error, which is time and money on trial and error. So that way, we can generate wealth, making a positive impact on the next generation. And it's very interesting as I word this. I can remember having a conversation with my fiance, and I was trying to get clear about what my vision statement was. And at first, I was, talking about stress-free abundance and all these other things. And then she asked me this powerful question, and she said, why are you really doing what you're doing? And she really made me pause.
Mhm.
And the first thing came to my mind was the children that I don't have. Yeah, and the thing was, how can I create an environment, a space that where they can strive, yeah, without I having to telling them exactly what to do. So I think that's
Mhm.
where the motivation of the next gen, yeah, tech CEO comes from, because I'm a big tech is a big part of my life, a big part of my career, and it's just a space that I really enjoy, yeah, playing in. So to put it in a nutshell, I'm more or less a high performance coach for tech startup CEOs, making sure that they're scaling their impact without, yeah, sacrificing the things that are important to them, relationship, family, or themselves.
Awesome. That is truly amazing. I mean, your story itself is already an inspiration. I believe you're already influencing many of us by especially sharing your own stories also, not only by, interviewing tech entrepreneurs who are leading their own
Mm,
way. So I believe
yeah, yeah.
those are two core elements that are leading your creation journey. But
Mm,
one of your recent posts, which you published as a creator, resonated with me a lot. It is actually about your days as a kid, how you used to be
mm,
not so enjoying, talking in front of or talking with strangers and all. And the reason
mm,
why it resonated with me is that because I used to be a very quiet kid myself, of course, that was a long
mm,
time ago, but it took me years of training um, until I got really myself to being this comfortable to be talking with,
mm.
all these different amazing people, including
Yeah,
yourself.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I believe it's a very important journey to train yourself and educate yourself
Mm,
to be, really truly comfortable sharing your stories and putting yourself out
yeah.
there, especially these days as a solopreneurs. There are many
Mm,
circumstances and occasions where you have to be sharing your authentic, you know, opinions
mm,
and thoughts and sometimes insights, right?
Yeah,
Without
yeah.
being too intimidating and all. So, what do
Mm,
you think about this, and how did
mm,
this transformation journey happen
yeah,
for you? Can you
yeah.
share a little bit about that?
Most certainly, most certainly. It's very interesting that you said that. As you said that, I can remember hearing the voice of my mom telling me that, Dino, you need to get out the house more. Yeah, you're always home. Yeah, and it has definitely been a transformative journey. It's interesting
Mm,
that being in a different country kind of given me the opportunity to show parts of myself that I'll never show to the world. Yeah, so most of my friends have always thought that I'm extroverted. Yeah, not knowing that it's something that I had to practice so that I won't feel awkward when I'm in around other people. How I think the major transformation happened for me when I start reading this book from, I think it's Andrew Carnegie. It calls How to Win
mm,
Friends and Influence People. Yeah, and that is one of my favorite books, and one of the first books I've ever read, because I was so tired of being afraid, yeah, of engaging with people in public or engaging with new people. So I started reading that book religiously. And I remember him saying this very interesting thing. There was different assignments that I had to do in the book, and one of the first one was to, when I walk in public, just look someone in the eye. Yeah. So
mm,
every day I had like these new exercises. I'll do it, look someone in the eye. And one of the thing the author said that when you look someone in the eye, you'll be surprised that they look away. So they're as nervous as you are. So
mm,
that kind of gave me that courage. And the second exercise that I started doing was to look someone in the eye and start smiling and smile to them. As I start practicing these little habits, I realize when I look a stranger in the eye and smile to them, they'll smile back. Yeah, and everything that
mm,
I was afraid of got dismantled. Because the thought in my head was that, they won't like me, they'll judge me, they'll think I'm weird, etc., etc. And I think when things really switch for me is when I start finding things in other people that I find interesting. Yeah, and that was
mm,
one of the biggest shift for me, because at first I thought it would have been a bit awkward to be telling people what I find interesting about them. But as I start doing it, people start liking it, and people start recognizing that, oh wow, Dean, you're really good at acknowledging my strengths. And I was like, so getting that
mm.
constructive feedback along the way also helped. Yeah.
That is amazing. So you discovered, probably coincidentally, that you're so good at discovering other people's strengths rather than focusing on
Mm.
their weaknesses, which is a
Yes, yes.
great, capability. It's a different one because often,
Mm.
more often than not, we get to focus. It's only natural for us to look at the things that we cannot do sometimes, what other
Mm.
people
Yeah.
can do. We're weaker in this realm and all that. But I do believe also focusing on your own strengths rather than the things that you cannot do, we can grow even further and more and deeper. And
Yes. Yeah,
it's an
most
amazing
definitely.
thing. Yes. So,
Yeah, yeah.
mhm.
Yeah, most definitely. What came up to me was, I think one of the things that we need to remember is that we are part of a collective. Yeah, and sometimes
Mm,
I think even me myself struggle with this, wanting to always doing stuff by myself and never asking for help. Yeah, and I think what we need to remember is that we are part of a community, whether it's locally or globally. And the reason why a community exists is so that we can leverage the strength of each other. So if there's something that
mm,
you personally can do, it doesn't say that you're that good enough. It just says that, oh, you can ask for help and you should ask for help, because there's someone out there who can leverage your strengths. And the faster we
mm,
become aware that of what our strengths are, the more liberated we become, because then we'll start to find people who actually need what we have to offer as
mm.
individuals. Yeah.
Oh, that is indeed a very interesting insight because listening to you just now, I almost got to realize that. So, this might be a very important question for us to ask, probably to ask right after this show. We might want to write
Mm.
down our own strengths. because
Yeah,
again, listening
definitely,
to you,
definitely. Yeah.
I try to, describe my own strengths. It was not
Mm,
so easy. Like, it was not so easy
mm,
to define
yeah.
my own strengths in probably 3 lines. So maybe
Mm,
that's one step that we can take away from this talk, which I'm
mm,
going to absolutely do right after this.
mm.
So write
Yeah, most
down, like,
certainly.
I know vaguely what I'm good at, but when you
Mm,
are to be descriptive about your own strengths, line by line, so probably you might want to list up 5 of the things that you're so good
mm,
at as a professional, but
yeah.
also as a person, what you like about
Mm,
yourself, what you love about being yourself, living as you or who you are. So these are the questions that sound very easy, but in reality, it's really not. So,
yeah, yeah,
so
yeah,
thank
yeah,
you
yeah.
for giving this opportunity, because I believe this was something that can be relatable, because in the post that I was mentioning for my second question, also, mentioned and pointed out that we can utilize every and each fear that we own,
Mm,
so that it can be an opportunity to grow and
mm,
train ourselves.
mm, mm.
So you
Yeah, yeah,
can
yeah.
you can discover about yourself a little more, and you can start define your own strengths, and you can also even take one step further and to start utilizing your own fears, and setbacks as an opportunity to
Mm,
transform yourself and re-educate yourself, and reskill and skill up yourself and all.
mm,
So this
mm.
also can be a great insight. But
Yeah,
moving on
most
to my
certainly, most
next
certainly.
question.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
please go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, most certainly. When you mentioned the idea of fear, I remember when I was about 8 years old, and I went to the beach with some of the older kids. Yeah, and on the island, we usually jump from the cliff to the water. And being eight, I'm one of the smaller kid. Yes, I'll jump from the lower rocks. But you're 8 years old, so you start to feel like you're becoming a big man. Yeah, so
Mm.
my friend and I took the risk to go to the really higher rock. And when we get at the top, the older kids would tell us, if you come here and you don't jump, we're gonna push you. Yeah, and no one want to be pushed. So what we did at that moment, I count 1, 2, 3, and I jumped. I held my hand in the chest,
Oh.
and then I hit the water, and I was like, oh my gosh, it was scary, but then it became excited. And through that little example or that analogy, I realized that you know most of the things that we're looking for in life is usually on the other side of the things that we're afraid of. Yeah, because the second time I did it, it wasn't as scary. The second time I did it, now I could look and enjoy the experience of jumping from a higher cliff. And
Mm.
it's the same thing with different areas of our life. As human beings, we have belief that shapes our reality. And when we become
Mm.
afraid, it's just our subconscious mind telling us that, okay, this is a limitation that you have been believing. And sometimes stepping through that belief breaks it and create new beliefs that allow you to
Mm.
expand as an individual.
Wow. So it's a good time to, define and probably recognize some of your own beliefs today. So thank you for sharing
Yes.
that. But I was also very impressed about how you're connecting different, tech entrepreneurs, how you're so good at those. And I saw some of your episodes, and um, I recommend everyone to watch Dino's YouTube, but it's also on different podcast channels.
Mm,
And you were really, really, nicely connecting the dots for different people. So
mm,
my next question actually is, how are you helping, these different startup CEOs,
mm,
not necessarily the interviewees, but all the startup CEOs to scale their impact without sacrificing. You mentioned briefly about this, but you don't want us to sacrifice too much of our work-life balance or wasting too much
mm,
time or money on trials and
mm,
errors. So, how are you helping people to grow and scale up without sacrificing too much
mm,
of this realm area of our
mm.
life?
Thank you so much for that question. And I really enjoy, the time that I've been having interviewing other tech startup CEOs, and I'll share this story with you because I think this is the story that's been the pinnacle of everything that I'm doing. I remember it was 2017, and I was on the seventh floor of my school dormitory. Yeah, and during which I had my running my first startup, and I remember my hands were tightly wrapped around the rails, and there was one word going through my head: jump, Dino, jump. Just get it over with. That's the only way you can end the pain. That was the first time I've ever had a thought of killing myself. It's funny that I even had those thoughts, and at that point I realized something wasn't right, something was wrong. Yeah, I was in a bad place financially. My relationships was going to the dogs because all I was thinking about is, how can I make what I'm doing successful? And on my best days, I spend my best days walking to my dorms, wrapped in my sheet, just scrolling YouTube. And I remember this I came across this speaker by the name of Jim Rohn, whose words forever changed my life to this day. And it was as if he popped out the screen and he looked me directly in my eyes and he said, "For things to get better for you, you need to get better." And that message hit me right here. And I realized in that moment that what I was experiencing had nothing to do with external experiences. It had everything to do with me. Yeah, but I didn't know what to do and I didn't know how to change. So I continued scrolling, I continued listening. And then he said this, he said, "Learn to work harder on yourself than you do on your business." That message hit me right here. Yeah, because I realized for my entire life, I've been a great student. Yeah, valedictorian, scholarship to China, yeah, having my own startup, having investment. But yet I felt so empty. So I was like, what's going on here? And then I didn't know what to do. So I keep on scrolling until he said this. He said, "Don't let your learning lead to knowledge. Let your learning lead to action." That's when I get the message. I realized in that moment I needed to get up and I needed to start moving. I needed to take action, work harder on myself than I did on my business. Yeah. And that's how I started. I literally committed every morning at 5 a.m. I was gonna get up and I was gonna run. Yeah, I was gonna work out, start taking care of my body. I was gonna start to learn. I started listening to other motivational speakers. I started reading books. Yeah, and those principles start changing my life. Yeah, and I realized that success is not about working harder, but it's about understanding what are the fundamentals and executing consistently at those. Yeah, and so one of the ways that I work with tech startup CEOs to help them is to help them become aware of what are their core strengths, yeah, what are their weaknesses and how they can leverage those. So one of the things that I've created, I call this your CEO type quiz. Yeah, and there's 5 different CEO type, which gives you overall idea of your strengths and your weaknesses. So the first type of CEOs are analysts. Yeah, they're very meticulous, driven. Yeah, but their weaknesses, they're not really great with influencing and leading teams. Yeah, so they need to really work on empathy and influence. Or they can find a co-founder who can complement them in that regard. The next is the visionary CEO. Yeah, he's the dreamer. He's the one who was creative, coming up with all the ambitious ideas. But then he's not really great at executing. Yeah, and he's not really great at planning as well. So he'll always get distracted by shiny object syndromes. Yeah, so the idea is once a CEO become aware of what their innate strength is, they'll understand what their weaknesses are, and either one, they would find employees or teammates to leverage and cover their blocks, or they would learn those other skills. And the thing is not that you're one or the other, is that you just inclined to one of the types. So once we establish what your innate strength is, now it's time to work on the business. Because the first thing is work on yourself, become better, then we start work on your business. And fundamentally, for every startup, there is three fundamental things that is needed to scale. That is one, you need a marketing strategy. Yeah, you need to be driving leads to whatever product or service you're offering. Two, you need some sort of sales strategy. All these leads that marketing is bringing in, you need some sort of strategy to take those leads to commit to the offer that you're giving them. And the third is that you need professional accountability, because every single thing that you need to do, any consistency. So you need to make sure that you're not distracted and that you're staying your course on the goal and the vision that you have created. And that's how I fundamentally help tech startup CEOs scale, by making sure that I am there, how to say, like King Arthur have his Merlin. I'm there, Merlin. I'm that person who's always covering their blind spot, making sure that they're
Mm,
not only taking care of their business, but they're taking care of themselves. Yeah.
mm. Wow, isn't that awesome? That was very powerful to listen to what you mentioned. And I just got curious, among the different leader types, which one would you put yourself in? Just
Well,
out of
for me personally,
curiosity.
for me, I'm a visionary. I'm a visionary CEO. I
Oh,
am a visionary leader. Yeah, I'm great with telling stories and coming up with ideas and big picture thinking. Yeah, so I've been leveraging my flank by having people around me who are very analytical, paying attention to the detail. Yeah, so that's one the
mm,
way I've been making sure covering my own block. Yeah. Which type do you think you are? Which type do you think you are? There are five types. I haven't shared all five types, but I'll share the quiz with you so you can take it and you can discover your type as well.
sure, sure. I would regard myself as a visionary one, but I would also recommend everybody who's watching this take the test or visit Dino's post, so that you
Mm,
can discover who you are a little more as a leader
mm.
specifically. But
Yeah,
another
yeah, yeah.
thing very impressive about you is you're right now living over there in China. So you briefly
Yeah.
mentioned that you studied there under a scholarship, but how did you get
Yes.
to become, an entrepreneur over there? Like, how did you
Mm,
get to decide that you stay there and base over there
mm,
to establish your life? Of course, you do have a fiance
mm,
there, but how are you setting up? And you do have amazing team over there too. So
mm,
how is everything happening over there in China? Because
mm,
you're thriving over there, but it's a completely so um, got disconnected. I believe he's going to come back, hopefully, or not. But I was going to ask him about how he was successfully running his business in a totally different environmental and cultural background, because it's so impressive, and it's also a very delightful experience to watch him grow over there. So maybe I wasn't supposed to be mentioning anything about this, or I don't know. But my last question I was going to ask him was alongside this question about his thriving over there. I wanted to see what he's going to say about his next goals and dreams and missions. Oh, Dino's back here. Hey!
That's what we call
I
tech
believe
one.
you got disconnected. I'm so happy you're
Yeah, I think it
here.
was my internet. That's tech fun.
I'm so thankful that you got back here. Thank you so much. This
My
happens
pleasure,
all
my
the
pleasure.
time. I'm so
I
happy
know,
that
I
this
know.
is working. I was just mentioning that how it's a delightful
Mm,
thing to be watching you grow and thrive in a totally different,
mm.
environment, both
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
culturally and environmentally and all. So it's a lot of things happening in your life, definitely, and I can definitely tell that you've come a long way, and you've
Mm,
come, not only you've come a long way, but a lot of your dreams must have come true. But I
Mm.
also do believe that you must have some more dreams and goals and some missions that you might want to
Yeah,
share with
yeah.
us before you go. So,
Mm,
what are some of the, how did you get to base in China? And
mm.
how, what more of your dreams or missions can you share with us before we go?
Yeah, thank you for that question. China has certainly been an incredible journey. Like I've been here over a decade now, and it wasn't the destination that I had in mind, to be honest. Yeah, I was academically I was a good student back on my island. That's like but it's 24 hours away from where I'm located currently. So I actually got a scholarship to study in a university in America, but that wasn't a full scholarship. And then the Chinese government was offering a full scholarship, yeah, to study electronic engineering here. And I was like, okay, why not? Yeah, China, let's go. Because I've always loved manga and Asian culture, as well as I'm a black belt in Taekwondo. So I've been doing Taekwondo since I was 12. So I figure China is really close to Korea. This is the closest I'm gonna get, to where Taekwondo is created. So that was another winning card as well for me taking that
It's
trip. And
still
I
very
think,
close.
just yeah, it's very
People
close.
travel back
Yeah.
and forth, and there is
Yeah.
quite a few commonality also. So yeah, it's Asia. So I'm glad that you're
Yeah,
based in
yeah.
Asia. But by the way,
Well, interesting.
please go on. I'm
I
sorry.
actually went. I actually went to Korea a couple of months ago for the first time, and it's
Oh,
how this is a whole different world. To be honest, there's a lot of commonalities, but that's another story. I really love that trip. But I think for me, one of my major goals, when I came here was to, build a school on my island because I find it was ridiculous that I had to travel so far to learn and become the person who I wanted to become. And recently I was reflecting on, did it really make sense to leave? Yeah. And what if I could have learned what I learned back home? Would I have been a different person? And what I realized is that, what made it different was people. Yeah, the people who I got to meet here, it wasn't what I learned or it wasn't the books I read because I could have read the same books, but it's the experiences that I created and the communities that I've been a part of. Yeah, because today as a coach, coaching has literally changed my life. Being able to experience the power of coaching has, you know, changed some of the beliefs that I've had about myself personally. Yeah, and that has been truly transformational from an individual who didn't believe it was possible for myself to now believing, oh, wow, this is actually possible for me. Yeah, starting my own business here in China as well. That's something that I thought was impossible. Speaking at TED, that's something I thought was impossible. And I think for me, my biggest dream or goal right now, is to be able to create a community. Okay, not even that. My biggest dream or goal is to create a world where every single high achieving leader have a high performing mentor or coach guiding them to success. Yeah, every single one of them. Yeah, because as I said, I believe the common denominator to who I have become is people and guidance. Yeah, and if I can create such a world, I think that would be the best environment for my kids to strive. Because the only thing that right now that scares me today is bringing children into a world where they won't be prepared to handle the dynamic shift. Yeah, it's interesting that today we hear that we are living in a VUCA world. A VUCA, I think the world has always been a VUCA world. Yeah, and it depends on where we are putting our focus. Yeah, so tomorrow when things seems good, we're still in a VUCA world. Yeah, today it's a VUCA world. It's gonna always be a VUCA world. I think the real question is how do you become the person who can strive in such a world? Yeah, and that comes by surrounding yourself with people who have the tools and the mindset, yeah, to navigate, the challenges ahead. Yeah.
wow, wow. It's really inspirational what you just mentioned. Thank you so much. So it's all
My
about,
pleasure.
working on you and working on your
Mm,
mindset. Thank you so much.
mm.
So after, this video, we might be feeling much stronger, I believe, thanks to your insights and
My pleasure.
inspirations. Thank you so much for being here again and your time and stories. It was amazing and much appreciated. I really look forward to, seeing you around on LinkedIn. And any last
Definitely,
comments,
definitely.
probably say bye to our viewers before you leave.
I think if I have any last comments for the viewers is to remember those three quotes that literally changed my life. Yeah, and the first one is, for things to get better for you, you need to get better. Yeah, sometimes we can want to blame outside circumstances or people, but we got to take that responsibility and realize that if things is not working how we want them to work in our business, in our life, yeah, there's something that we're not focusing on up here, and there's somebody we need to be differently. And the second one is, learn to work harder on yourself than you do on your business, because you are the number one bottleneck to everything that you create as a leader, as a friend, as a spouse. And the third one is, don't let those learning lead to knowledge. Yeah, when you grab that insight, when you hold that insight, the next thing is to integrate it by taking action, and then get accountability. Because the thing that would stop you faster than anything else is gonna be yourself. So have someone outside of you to cover your flank, to really cover your blind spot and hold you accountable of the person who you are committing to become. And that would be my last message to everyone who's listening. And go ahead and check out the Next Gen Tech CEO podcast. Yeah, I have some really great conversation with some top tech CEOs. Yeah, and those will be inspiring for you, and just help you to learn from a different perspective of how other CEOs and leaders are growing their team and their businesses. Thank you so much, Jen. Yeah, and I know the next time I pop up in Korea, I need to holler at you as well.
Absolutely, definitely. It was my pleasure and honor, and definitely everyone should be visiting, your channel. So Dino's channel again was Next Gen Tech CEO Journey. So thank you so much again, and
Awesome.
I'll see you again. Talk soon.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much, Jen. Bye.
Bye. Have a great one.